you need to do. First of all, I think you ought to do is you got a little money, you should do a little economic development plan for your town. I think you put yourself on a real slippery slope if all of a sudden you come out and you're looking out for the resorts and you have no justification, no backup, no nothing else. I think they have great justification, and today's front page of the Daily Mail is a great example of that. If you notice, oh man, I lost the name of it again. The lodge there, I was just talking about.
Acre Manor?
Acre Manor, thank you. Acre Manor just sold to a nonprofit 501c3 Jewish group out of New Jersey. So in other words, we all know where this is going, okay? While the sellers said, oh, they didn't say anything to us about taking it off the tax roll. Yeah.
They're entitled to it, they're entitled to it.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so I suggested, Carol, what they do is get an economic development plan of your own going. And then what you need to do too is maybe you need to take a look at how you're developing your assessments on these properties, because if you're just doing your assessments on these properties like comps or, well, they're not costs because they're low resort, but if you're just doing them on comps, maybe you need to have these people come in and take a look at using a discounted cash basis type of appraisal assessment on these properties, which would give you a legitimate way to reduce their tax load, and not only the town tax load, but the tax load across the board.
They're considered income producing properties if they're rented. They're considered income producing properties if they're rented and rented out these resorts. So therefore they could be, there's a case on that, dealing with that, you use the income approach.
Right. And as we know, if you use the income approach, it typically is going to drop your assessment somewhat significantly.
So Renee,
So I just wanted, we're not, no rule for us at this point in time or anything, but just, I guess it's another good example of how people kind of look to us for stuff
right,
like this.
and I think your approach is right on that, because I mean, my question would be, is your real problem here saving $1,000 on your tax bill every year, or is your real problem demand? Like,
Yeah.
Your product that you're offering.
exactly,
is
this
not
is a
very-
marketing,
Yeah.
sales, business problem. I mean, yeah, it's nice to save on your tax bill, but wouldn't what's gonna help you more is more demand, not just cutting the bill on a failing operation.
Well, and right now, I think this is it. You're probably never gonna get a better time. I mean, I don't think the demand for hospitality in the Catskills has been as good as in 50 years.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, when you hear about Airbnbs, and I've been talking with somebody who's just started doing one on a property they own, and they're booking out every weekend now. And, but they had to make this property attractive for people to come up for the weekend and put features in there that look great on the internet. But there is a model that does seem to be working, especially when you hear we've got some of the best Airbnb numbers. Brian, you're in this business, what do you think?
They're killing it. Airbnbs are
Yeah,
killing
is it hurting you?
Definitely. Oh, yeah, they're competing, we're competing directly with them every weekend, exactly.
What do you see as an alternative, or in the resort business, what do you think their solution is, or, do you think there is
It's
one?
not really easy. I mean, they just bought my cousin's place. They're saying they're gonna put $15-20 million into it. I don't even know what that means. This company's done this in other places, and they've kept the old buildings. So I don't know what they're gonna do. Condos, like Catterskill Hotel over in Hunter, long-term ownership and then short-term rental. That seems to be a model that works. It's weddings, that's a big thing now. That's driving a lot of these businesses. So you're just scrambling to figure out how to get people to come. But the Airbnb business is definitely a huge market. Every house up there where we are is rented. It's being rented all the time. It's a winter. You keep it for the weekends you want, you rent it for the ones you don't.
Yeah.
It's a huge industry, so there's no doubt about that.
What a world.
Well, I would think
works
that the tax structure issue is the, you're talking about $1,000 on your property tax, but the real issue is those are commercial properties,
Oh, yeah. Well, we're getting-
and not residential,
Right.
and maybe in a county like Greene where
They
we're
couldn't even
in
get,
that,
Wyndham
they should
couldn't even
really
get it.
rethink
They
how
don't
they're
even
doing
know who is an Airbnb. They couldn't even get, they're so powerful now because Airbnb themselves comes after the local government and they get
Right.
everybody with them.
Yeah.
You're fighting against a monster now. Wyndham couldn't even get a registration. Forget it. They tried, they blew it. They tried to get everything. They were like, we're gonna do this and this, and it was like, they got squashed. they don't even, you know, have I would have just said, can you tell us who, you know, who's out there, but they have nothing now. And these
We
people
don't
are
have a
paying,
bed tax
the real
in this
estate
county,
up there
right?
is unbelievable,
No,
people are
and
paying for it
this
and turning them
county
into
is so
Airbnb.
totally adverse to
So
it,
you
which
know it's
I never
working.
really, I can't understand to save my life, but.
Well, that's the competitive issue for whether it's
But you know
a
what?
resort.
But it's not a competitive issue, this is all in our mind. I mean, well, don't forget, we have Branch in here who owns multiple hotels who not only was willing to pay a 4%, but offered to boost it to 5%, you know, so the hotel developers I've talked to, also the hotel, have all told me face out, that is just what's expected everywhere.
It's just an add-on.
But in Greene County, they look at it as this will completely drive people away, and I just don't see
It's
that.
just an add-on on your bill. When you check out of these hotels, it's just a couple extra bucks.
Oh my God,
you know,
it's
and
detailed,
yeah.
and in Airbnbs around the country, if you've stayed in them, I mean, they list them right out. Here's your city tax, here's your, you know,
Yeah.
How does an Airbnb not a commercial operation in violation of the zoning ordinance? Can you
Well,
tell?
Because we don't
I
have
don't-
any zoning ordinance, we don't have zoning. in
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, there's no
Right.
zoning. So-
But I think that's,
Yeah,
you know,
so
if
that's how-
I'm the Caro,
Just wide open.
Chamber of Commerce.
So anyone can do anything?
It's not
under
even
permit?
anti-Airbnb, it's
Yeah.
really starting to
Oh.
look at
Sorry.
what the structure is, because
Puts me
even if
in.
you converted to a 501c3, you know, look at something like the lumber
Yeah.
yard, you know, and they're gonna say,
Shows up
people
on
come
a
in
lot,
and
right?
they spend money and they do
Yeah.
X. The truth is, the community is supporting all of that. Whether it's water or
Yeah.
fire
It's
or
fire.
all of those sorts of things, and people have commercialized. I'm kind of with you, I don't know, how it's not.
It's a hotel,
Right,
because it's not a residence for the owner
but
occupant.
there are plenty of municipalities around the state, and counties that have figured out, and Airbnb has caved, you know.
So to my point, one of the reasons, another good reason for the IDA to be working and helping these hospitality businesses is to give alternatives to that business, you know, that there is still some traditional. And as Brian noted, he was at his cousin's place, the Thompson House in Wyndham, just sold. It's, these guys go under the Wilder Group. I looked them up this morning.
Right.
They have 2 hotels, one in Maryland and
Yep.
one in California, Hope Valley, California.
Yep.
Very kind of like high-end, all-season, full destination type resorts. I didn't look closely, I didn't get the sense that it was a sort of a condo rent thing.
Yeah, the one in Maryland, they kept the old buildings.
Yeah,
They
no.
had the wood siding and everything, so
Yeah.
I don't know what they did internally, I don't know, but I don't even imagine how you could spend $15-20 million on that property in Wyndham without building something.
Yeah, no, I
More
know,
than 2
build
stories
something, yeah,
up.
that's an awful lot of wallpaper and.
Yeah, that's a
you know,
lot of dough.
But, so we will definitely be expecting an application from this one. Mike Tucker, who is Tucker Strategies, you know, Mike Paul does, and you know,
CG,
yeah, yeah.
Columbia
CG,
County.
and now he is running Columbia County's IDA and all that is through his consulting business. They've actually hired him as a consulting, runs that. But he is working for these guys. So he was the one who reached out to me with his consultant hat on. So I fully expect that we will see an application in.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, and then lastly, while we're all sort of rolling into the resort stuff, you will notice one of the things I reported to you on here is the Astoria is back up for sale again. Has anybody been by there lately?
I have,
Okay, I reached out to the realtor who I know and I said, if you get a serious investor, before you do anything, arrange a meeting with me. And see if we can get a solid person and help out right up front. I don't know that we would have helped the last guy. I only met him once. You know, I really never got a chance to dive into it. I wasn't overly impressed. I thought he had bitten off way more than he could chew and didn't understand it, so we probably wouldn't have helped him. But if they can get some solid investors in there, they're gonna finish that place up, let's help them. And as I told her, let me know up front. You might need to put your sale off for a couple of months, but we could roll, you know, if you roll this whole thing into a package, you know, we can help you on the mortgage, the sales, and all the rest of it. Because it is terrible eyesore. You know what we're talking about, Benny?
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, let's see if she gets a buyer and you know, we'll make arrangements with whoever the new buyer is to see if we can help out. So I guess energy and hospitality seems to be where we're gonna be.
They sold Villa Silla, you know that.
Yeah, I did hear
That
that.
was a religious.
I forgot about that, got sold too, but that got sold to stay open, right? Or who?
Well, I think there was a little sleight of hand there maybe. People that came in there, presented one thing and really it was another.
Yeah.
But they did sell, and I think it's gonna go off the tax rolls eventually.
You think it's gonna go off?
Yeah, I think it's gonna go, it'll become a school or something.
But where does this whole thing go? You know, now that we're returning to business and, you know, people like, I mean, I think at some point the employers are gonna say you have to come back to work in an office. You know, I mean, I think people like this strategy, you know, but, you know, I've just heard of people, like one guy just quit his job and went to work in Aruba and just, you know, FaceTime and did whatever he did. I mean, okay, so, you know, the city's opening up, people are coming back. Is this a short-term trend, or is this, because, you know, I don't understand it.
I think it's gonna be a
I think
hybrid.
it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
you're gonna, I mean, I know larger offices, recently, I just heard a week ago, they're going back in another month. But I think you're gonna see some that are, it's gonna be both.
Depends on how much
Yeah.
collaboration you have to
But
have.
I would say in the city, I mean, I would say from what I've seen just in my little community, in terms of people, you know, their incomes didn't take a hit. So they can afford two places, right? Or people who are investing, even if it's just paper wealth that people had. So where does this go? I mean, I think as a county, whether it's the economic development, the county or the chambers, et cetera, when you start thinking, I mean, we're not that far from Sullivan County. It's not that hard to look to see what happens when, you know, some of these immense parcels not just come off the rolls, they're just repurposed into,
Religious services.
you know, 501c3s,
Well, some of them
et
just
cetera.
collapsed.
Well, some of correct,
It's
exactly.
Yeah.
From Ellenville
Well,
down?
from Ellenville down. I mean, and when you also look.
Farmland is more valuable than that.
That's
Well,
it.
and you have the city of New York who purchased a lot of those properties and then used them for.
It's buffer land and, yeah.
No, they didn't use them for buffer land. Down in the Ellenville area, they used them for behavioral health issues,
Yeah.
you know,
Whereas-
rehab kind of facilities, et cetera. So, you know, you have what are the vacationers and what are the hybrid work people doing? And then you have to say, is there an opportunity, you know, where other people are looking for opportunity that you're not even thinking about? Whether it's, you know, religious and doing a school with some sort of housing, you know, accommodations,
You
et
know what the
cetera.
long-term problem is if you can outsource, if you can work from Aruba, and you don't need to be physically present at your job, at what point does it become, we don't need you and we can get a guy in India?
I think you're already there.
Employee, that's the danger. If it can be outsourced, it can be done anywhere in the world. And it doesn't need to be done necessarily with
Bob to
you.
do it.
Well,
Proper
and it's,
employees.
I would say even in the
That's
line of work
dangerous.
that I'm in,
Yeah.
we have a lot of work that happens internationally. I mean, because it's 24/7, not unlike the hospital. You know, most of the hospitals in the state of New York, you know, a lot of their midnight to 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. reading of MRI, you know, there's stuff that's going on internationally because the clock is international. And it's just, it's part of the fabric that's really opaque to a lot of
We
people.
call
but
in our
in this-
payroll, the
Yep.
MEP. I'm talking to somebody in India or wherever.
Yep,
And they, you know, are probably working from their house, who knows? They're on a terminal and they're answering the phone and they're doing it. And
See, in New York City, the norm was they would give you 3 months free rent because the people were just scrambling to get the heck out of there. Now that's come back down to where there's no free rent. And so, you know, that tells you that demand is insourcing in, I think, so I just don't know if this is a temporary blip or a permanent sea change. And I think that's kind of the important issue for us because, you know, all of a sudden, we have always been like the weak stepchild. No one really wants to be here, and then all of a sudden people really want to be here,
right.
during this pain. So is that permanent or temporary? I mean, I don't know.
I
I
would
guess
say
there's
the-
here and then there's just a scenario overall, are you working in an office or are you? Because I know my brother-in-law is a software guy at IBM, and a few years ago they transferred him down to North Carolina. They built this huge office because some of these tech companies, what they realized, they wanted people back together to collaborate, and it was better in person than the remote stuff. So they go through this huge model of back in person. They had workstations right next to each other. They just finished the building. Pandemic hits. They shut the whole thing down. They're back to. So does it swing back the other way where they need them back in person, I don't know.
I would say if you look at the Columbia County and you look at the value of Amtrak and anybody, and that would be me, who would be on the 5:30 AM train that was packed, the 6:20 AM, for people doing alternate work schedules. And the other thing here is the income tax, right? If your employer is willing to work with you and you're not, physically located in the city of New York, not having to pay that level of taxes, not having to pay the MTA commuter tax, depending on, where you are, the MTA mortgage tax. There's a lot that's attractive about, being in Greene County if you can get an alternate work schedule, or whatever you do can be. But coming back to the resorts, coming back to hospitality, coming back to what we do here, I think there's going to be a lot of unevenness. I'm surprised though that the legislature itself isn't looking more aggressively at modernizing how they're looking at stuff like that. Because I use the term bed tax, but that's probably not it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a whole lot of properties in this county that are investor owned, and whole lots of things that really should get them rethinking what that means, because
I think you'll see next year it taper off because people are staycationing in America right now. So where normally it's international vacations, and I mean, look at all of us, we all go, on vacation, and, we're staying locally now. We're still going on vacation, we're just not doing it in Mexico or Europe. But when that opens back up again, you'll see a decline in local resorts.
I agree.
Right now, it's the only option.
Right.
I mean, try to go to one of the national parks in America right now.
Yeah.
It's any place in America, but that's because those people normally would have vacationed out of country.
Right.
And we'll go back to that once things open up again. Then you'll see it decline. But I think, to Maggie's point, it will be a combination moving forward.
Yeah.
I
I don't think you ever totally go back, because once the horse is out of the barn and you realize you can do things a certain way, it's kind of like the remote learning at the school. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but what it does do is give options on snow days and other problems that they can boom, just go remote, and it's not all bad.
I would also think for some of the schools in particular, it should give them options on space. Like if you have seniors who are half day, you should really be rethinking your space before you think about building, right?
They're just,
And some of the modern employers are so, eager to please their employees, bend over backwards, honestly. They're giving them what they want.
That's a good point too. That's a very
The new employer, you wanna have this, you wanna have that, we're gonna give you this.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, again, none of us know, and if we had that kind of vision and insight, we'd be like the number one performing island in the country.
Yeah.
But my sense is that and this is my conversations that I've had with resort owners and hospitality people, it's yours to make something of. So you either take the cash while you can now and don't put nothing back into place, or do anything to try to get them back next year, and this will be a big blip. But if you start, and Ryan, you've kept your place looking nice up there, and then as you know, there's a lot of other resorts haven't put a nickel into place in 20 years.
I think it's up to, these other resorts to do what Brian has done, is make an attractive place to go, and if you haven't run a successful business, you're looking for a bailout.
Right.
Because right now, there's no excuse not to be busy.
That's true. Yeah.
So, we'll see. We should have, again, I'll definitely expect us to see an application from the Thompson House. That'll be a given, I promise that. And then, like I said, with the Astoria Motor Court, I'm gonna stay right on top of that. And if they get, a potential buyer or investor, I wanna meet with them immediately and see if we can put together a package to help them out and get that property underway. So, all right, that's it on that. So moving, the Catskills Renewable Quarter, no big deal. They call every couple days, they're working on it. Want to start doing public outreach to towns here shortly. My point to them has been, have you made a decision on a converter station here or not? Because if that project is apples and oranges, depending on what they do with a converter. If they do a converter station, we're talking about a big distribution warehouse-sized building right along 9W. If they don't, it'll go right down the river with a fish in So that's why I tell them, it really depends. If you're going down the river, no big deal, but if you're gonna put a big building up, it's a different deal. So somewhere you gotta line these things up and be straight, make your decisions. So we'll see what happens with those guys. Next time, key capture, and the record should reflect that Director Buell will need to recuse himself from any discussions or votes on this because of a conflict. I don't think do we have to note the reason of the conflict?
Not yet, no, let's, it can't, if you don't have an ownership interest, but what do you, a ground lease, or do you?
No, I own it.
You own the land,
He's
right?
gonna sell
land.
land to him. Yeah.
Yes, okay, yeah, he's not going, he's not owning it going forward, right?
No, but he does have.
He has a contract
So,
with
yeah,
it.
so I think at this point, he just needs to recuse himself and is fine, is what I would advise him on that. So I did meet, so anyway, I met with them. The town is very supportive, I would say. They're looking forward to the project happening, had some conversations about process and how this will work, et cetera. One of the things they need to do is they need to go back to the bank and figure out how to throw some more money into this. Now, I'm waiting to see when April takes the class, but these battery storages are like completely new. As far as assessing them or what they should pay or what they shouldn't pay. The only other one that exists around right now that's operating, I know, is the one in Stillwater Mechanicville, and they're paying like $700 a year per megawatt up on that, which is pretty peanuts. I think I explained to you guys before, what had happened in this case is, they came around and they had they had this available $700 number in their head, and then made a handshake agreement with the town to give them $700 for a host fee. And so when they came to see me, I was like, well, you kind of left some taxing entities out of this here. So they're gonna have to go back to the table. And my thoughts are, depending on where they come back with money, this is probably gonna be a situation where we're gonna have to do a tax distribution agreement with the town. Because the town can't take half of the available money in a host fee and then get a pile on top of it. So the town's gonna have to be satisfied with the host fee, and then the remaining money split between the town and the school, because we're talking about another 700 is all. So I don't see the town being opposed to that. But anyway, that we would have to do what we've done with the schools before on that. We'll dot that out. We're a couple years out probably, but
Yeah,
anyway, but again, they are still a couple of years out from starting. This will be one of the, they do have a draft application in. I expect to see a full application here shortly. But this will probably be another one of those ones we'll approve, and we'll be sitting in limbo land for a little bit of time. Which goes back to kind of the conversation we had last month about, the idea versus take 3 Point Solar. October, we were rushing that thing at their request to get it through. And here we are in almost July and nothing, they haven't executed, we haven't gotten a fee or nothing. Are they gonna move forward? Yes, I think they are. They mowed the field, they already did the bird mitigation, they paid for it, so. They wouldn't have paid for that, they weren't gonna move forward, but it doesn't help the IDA on a cash flow basis type of thing, so. So we'll see where that goes. Flint Mine Solar, did come in to meet with me. I expect that we'll see an application again from them shortly. Flint Mine's the 100 megawatt, the big one. Their Article 10 process, not Article 10 anymore. It's,
PSC process.
yeah, the PSC process is the timeframe is up August, third week in August. So we expect middle of August. That typically they make an announcement about a week before their deadline. So I don't think anybody has any expectation that it's not going to get approved at this point. So they will be putting in an application. They were a little discouraged about our enhanced solar fee, which I'm not sympathetic to, because when we pass that, we have a enhanced solar fee on these big projects, 5% of the fee up front, which is in their case $50,000. But when we passed that rule, I specifically sent it to both of the solar companies the day we passed it, the English version. Just saying you need to be aware of this stuff. And I always love when they show up here and they start, well, we didn't put that in the budget, we didn't put that in the budget, we put that in, why are you meeting with me? Sounds like you gotta work on your budget. But anyway, they have been throwing a number around since they came of like 500,000 a year, which is like 5,000 a megawatt. They told me the other day that they have agreed, handshake agreement at this point, but they will give the town of Athens and the town of Coxsackie each $200,000 annually as a host fee, separate. Now, my first question, you're not taking it, like, well, let's see, if you're taking 400 out, that leaves, no, that's on top of. So basically, that would work out to about, like say, 5,000 a megawatt, which quite frankly, in my opinion, is good for a large project like that, especially with the two towns getting the host fee benefits on top of that. So, well, we don't have an application, we have to go through and vet it. I think this will go pretty quickly, because I think that's a fair number, and with the towns, if you add the host fee and the pilot together, it almost matches, pretty close matches what we negotiated on the Freepoint Solar at about 8,700 a megawatt, which is appropriate. It's about the appropriate range between, let's say, 7 and 8, somewhere in that range for, 5 megawatt ones, small ones. But you gotta recognize, there's gotta be some economy of scale when you're up on these bigger ones. And then don't forget, we talked, they passed the new law, 572, 575B.
40%, yeah.
Of real property tax law now. These things have to be done on a discounted cash basis. One up in Clemens went from about a $45 million assessment down to 13.5, using that, which is another reason I say, going back to Carroll with the resorts, the only two times in my experience that I've worked with both a regular, assessment versus a discounted cash assessment. The first time is, and me and Paul worked with the assessor with the Wheelabrator, and that Wheelabrator was about a $15 million bill, so about a $15 million assessment on a cost basis. And where did that come out to? About 4.2 million on a cash basis, right? So it just gives you an idea of the automatic, which is one reason I suggested that the resorts take a look at Carroll, because it's a legitimate way they could work. But so anyway, when we get the application, we will get in. It is my intention that we will hire an outside consultant to do a discounted cash basis appraisal assessment on it, so that we have some idea of a basis for trying to calculate what the savings and other things are like that, which was the reason for the enhanced fee. And then with the enhanced fee, we can apply up to 50% of that on the back end, which we did with Freepoint. We said we would apply 50% of it back on against our fee on the back end. So in this case, there may not be 50%, because it's probably going to cost me, to get a really good job done with a few consultants, it may cost me half of that fee just to get that done. So
This is up Flint Mine, you make a left there and go up in the back there.
it's all over. It's by Flint Mine.
What, about 100 acres or so?
No,
500?
I think they've got 300 and some acres or 400 acres of panels on it. So it's a bunch of different parcels, Coxsackie and Athens. When you're going down 9W, that brick farm, we used to call it the brick farm, past the Highway Theater, it'll be behind that in the big fields, it'll be on the other side of the road by Black Horse, and then a lot of those fields from Black Horse down to Schoharie Turnpike, all back on that side of the east side of 9W. That's gonna be a large
Let's
part
look
of it.
for the no solar plant.
High concentration.
The fight of all. So Paul and I, just on project updates, Empire's going, he's going well. If you can add up, been a lot of activity down there. We did receive one complaint through our info at Greene IDA account about the noise. And, that won't my story, because they were complaining about all the noise and everything, this and then on Mother's Day, they were running machinery all day long.
They're great, those machines are great.
Because what my place is right next to them.
I like machines.
So I had Aaron's excavator, but when I emailed the guy back, I said, look, I'm gonna be, you don't know me, but this is the kind of guy I am, I'm not gonna let Aaron take a hit on Mother's Day. He said, that was me. I said, but I purposely waited till noon. It was so beautiful.
I think they're great.
I said, you know what, I can't disturb the peace. So I putzed around, and when the afternoon, the community was coming alive, I got the machine. You forget when you're on the machines how much that beeping drives.
I was gonna say, you gotta disconnect the backup a lot.
Yeah.
That will do it.
I wouldn't disconnect anything.
Let her fly.
Letter space.
So anyway, Aaron's moving along, he's moving along well. I would say we'll start to see steel work in the next couple of weeks coming up. Footings are all being poured right now. They did the ground stabilization, which was pretty interesting to see what they did down there with, they hardened that ground up like rock, all the way down to that rock, so it's a good
So
job.
that's like $11-12 million down there, right?
Yeah,
So how do you put 15 or 20 into the Thompson house?
Yeah. That's a
Right,
brand, this is
it
a brand
doesn't
new
add up.
building.
There's gotta
Exactly.
be, I'm with you, there's gotta be
They're building a ski slope there.
either a new build, or they're gonna tear a building down, replace it or something. But you said Eric told you 15 he heard, and Mike Tucker told me 20. Now, Mike Tucker's number might have had the purchase price in it too, though, I'm thinking. And I don't know what Eric sold for, I don't really care to
I
know.
don't really either, so.
So on that, but, in Camp Town, they're moving along down there, you know, you get one complaint on that they're not mowing the lawn, and, this is why I really love this job. And, Free Point, me and Paul were trying to figure out what's going on with
I
it.
think we just write them a letter, say you would close or your benefits are gone. That's,
Well, we don't know what's our,
I think that's what
that's
we
what I
got.
said before, do we have a policy, we're not have a policy with it. So let's just see where to go. It's out there, it's in the accounts receivable pile, that's about it. So that's pretty much all that I have.
You heard anything new about the property across from the New Baltimore Thruway between the railroad on the east side, between the railroad and the thruway over there, that long, the Subaru property?
I was gonna say, the Subaru
Subaru,
property.
yeah.
I have not,
Anything new there?
I have not. Now, you probably saw that there was, somebody came to the Baltimore Planning Board about doing some distributions
Yeah.
centers on that parcel of land there across the Taylor's Monument. Now, how the hell, that parcel's tiny.
I don't know, I don't see.
They're talking about a rail spur.
Yeah.
I strongly suspect that if you did a little digging, Carver's probably actually is behind it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that,
he's running out of.
yeah, I'm not saying that badly,
It's
but,
Yeah.
unbelievable what he did.
I mean, it's incredible. He,
you know, in fact, if he is behind it, probably the better thing is at least if somebody knows what he's doing and knows how to get it done, you know?
One of the big marijuana companies, Curaleaf's doing a project in his,
Is that the new building going up in there now?
and so.
Oh, Carver?
Yeah.
He's already got a building there, don't they?
There is one already.
They're doing another one?
Yeah, get ready for
I
recreation.
mean, what's gonna happen, I mean, everyone's prepping for New York State now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the problem. How do you cash a check?
That's.
I mean, I'm telling you, I'm some, it's impossible because,
Yeah.
like, I opened up an account for a friend of mine in a name, and then they somehow search down that they find you're involved in the CBD business.
Right.
And then it's like you're kicked out of the bank. It's unbelievable.
Those guys are high anyway.
That would be cryptocurrency.
That's right. That'll do it.
So, no, I haven't, heard anything more about that on the other side over there.
Hey, one thing just,
Oh, yeah.
this is kind of related to, Village of Coxsackie Solar. But there's a case that came out, it's in a different jurisdiction, but, if you have an amendment to a pilot agreement, you have to provide a, notice to you've got to actually amend your 412A, or someone lost their exemption. I'll leave you with this case from that. There's a little bit of verbiage in the statute, so, that's just something you have to kind of be aware of. So we can't just amend it without amending our assessor's file.
Is this a new case? Or-
Yeah, it just came out this week, or last Friday.
And that would only be really if you amended the dollar amounts, right?
Well, this one, I think, talked about someone sold the company that was the operator. And they did not amend their application. This is what it looks like. And therefore, someone took away their exemption, and then they lost the case. So they lost the exemption for like a period of time.
I mean, it's kind of obvious.
So how does that affect
Changing
us,
the
like,
ownership.
that's what I thought you were gonna bring up, the
Right.
estoppel with
Yeah.
Coxsackie Solar, so.
We have to tell them that they have to sign on to, some kind of document. I did an omnibus amendment that had been transferred, but, we do have to then file a 412A amendment to it. I mean, fortunately, we have Gordon there, and we have no one really fighting us, but this was like, looks like a railroad of some sort, like a,
So all we have to file that then is with the local assessment.
correct. It's an amendment to the 412A filing that I take.
Well, that makes sense, because the 412's gotta be consistent with ownership and all that good stuff. So Paul, can we get the board to approve the estoppel today, and then we'll just take.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah. So again, we're going through with a sale of the interest of the companies people were doing.
Solar at the end of the street.
Yeah,
side.
and that deal fell through, so they want us to give another estoppel certificate saying they're not in default, which is ordinary course stuff. So, but, we do have to then approve, the transfer to this new entity, so that's,
Well, that's what I'm asking you, why can't we do that today?
we can do it today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is, they found a new buyer now, and they, according to Robert Sanders, their lawyer, this new buyer is supposedly a much stronger company.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just get out of the way.
Yeah, so we'll approve the transfer.
So we need a motion
Yeah.
to approve the transfer, this Kentucky Solar to a new buyer.
Yeah, the new buyer, so.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Brian, second.
I'll second
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then what we'll do is if you would just give April the name maybe or something. we can
Yeah, we'll put it in
the
that, yeah,
records,
minutes,
so
yeah.
we'll just put the records on that, on the-
Yeah, actually, I probably can look it up as we.
So again, like I said, that's all I have. I think
Okay.
things are going well as they could be going and,
I just need a motion to adjourn.
it. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.